Hello everyone, welcome to the fifth and last session of the Create Unity Help Your Community group. My name is Ashley and I'm going to be the leader for today. I hope you have enjoyed the previous sessions with my co-leaders. The name of today's session is Acting Up. The goal for today's session is to help you learn how to properly address conflict while you're volunteering. Before we start today's session, I'm going to briefly discuss what has been covered in the previous sessions, and then at the end of today's session, I'm going to go into more detail to recap all the sessions of the group. So in the first session, Stephanie helped you locate where you want to apply to be a volunteer. In the second session, Nicole taught you about all the different types of transportation that you could use to get to your volunteer site and how to use them. In the third session, you learned how to fill out a volunteer application with Lady. Lastly, in the previous session, Amber taught you how to be successful in your interview. It is important for you to be practicing the skills you have learned throughout the sessions in order to build the skills that you need to be a volunteer. At this point, hopefully you have submitted your volunteer application. You may still be waiting for a response from the volunteer site, but just be patient. They receive a lot of applications and they will get back to you as soon as they can. Some of you may have had your interview already or may have an interview scheduled. No matter where you are at in the process of becoming a volunteer, before you start volunteering, it is important for you to have an idea of what is expected of you as a volunteer. As I have stated earlier, the name of today's session is Acting Up. The purpose of today's session is to prepare you for volunteering and get you feeling confident in your ability to volunteer. During this 30-minute session, I will be going over what you should and shouldn't do as a volunteer and also how to address or avoid conflict. I hope that the information that we cover in today's session will be helpful for you as you prepare to start volunteering. I want to quickly remind you that at any time during the video, you could always pause the video and go back if you feel like you missed something. Now let's get started on our first activity. For our first activity of the session, we are going to cover what you should and shouldn't do as a volunteer. I'm going to go over the do's and don'ts of volunteering. After I'm done explaining the do's and don'ts of volunteering, you will be given 2 true or false questions. When we get to the questions, I will read the questions to you, and then you will have 10 seconds to decide if the question is true or false. If you need more time, you could always pause the video and resume when you are ready. Let's get started by going over the do's of volunteering. These are the things that you should do while you're volunteering. First, you should always be on time. As you learned from Amber last session, for your interview, you should be 10 to 15 minutes early. When showing up to volunteer, you should also try to be 10 minutes early to get yourself situated and ready for the day. If for some reason you are going to be late, you should always notify your supervisor or whoever is in charge. It is not professional if you are late and you do not notify them. Also, if you need a day off or you are sick and cannot make it, make sure you inform your supervisor in a timely manner. The earlier you could tell them, the better. If you have a vacation planned and you know you will be missing days that you are supposed to volunteer, you should give them at least 2 weeks' notice, but it is best to give them a month's notice so they have enough time to find coverage. Second, conduct yourself in accordance with the standards of conduct and ethics of the site. Most likely the volunteer site will have a training session that you will have to attend before you could start volunteering. At this training session, they may give you a handout with the rules and regulations that you have to follow while volunteering. They may also give you a paper to sign stating that you will abide by the state's rules. Be sure you thoroughly read any information that they give you and follow the site's guidelines while volunteering. Next, perform your assigned responsibilities willingly and to the best of your ability. When you are given a responsibility and they need your help, you should be happy to help. You should always do any responsibility given to the best of your ability, and if you have any questions on what you were supposed to do, don't be afraid to ask. Next, adhere to any dress code. Some sites may give you a uniform to wear. Always be sure to wear that uniform and a name tag if they are provided. Make sure the uniform is clean and looks neat. If you do not have a specific uniform, ask them what their dress code is. For example, some sites may not allow you to wear jeans. Be sure you know what to wear prior to starting so you could be prepared and dress appropriately on the first day. You always want to look presentable. Lastly, respect the confidentiality of sensitive information. For example, if you are volunteering in a healthcare setting, you have to follow HIPAA regulations by not sharing patients' names or personal information with others. If you have not heard of HIPAA before, they develop regulations that anyone in the healthcare field must follow to ensure the confidentiality and security of health information. Anyone working or volunteering in a healthcare setting must protect the personal information of the patients and not disclose any information. Before you start volunteering in any healthcare setting, they will give you additional information on the HIPAA's regulations. Another example of respecting confidentiality is if you are volunteering at a soup kitchen and you see someone you know getting food there. You should respect their privacy and not tell anyone that they were there getting food. Now that we have covered the do's of volunteering, let's go over the don'ts of volunteering. These are the things that you should not do while you're volunteering. First, do not steal, destroy, or attempt to do malicious damage to the property of the volunteer site. Treat their property with respect. Do not purposely break anything or steal any of their property. For example, if you are working somewhere that provides food for people in need, do not eat any of the food. If you eat the food without permission from a supervisor, this is still considered stealing. Next, do not pretend to know how to do something that you don't know how to do. If you are unsure on how to do a responsibility that you were given, ask questions. They will be happy to assist you or find someone that can assist you. For example, if you are asked to file paperwork and you're unsure which filing cabinet they want to put the files in, if you just guess which cabinet they want instead of asking, the information can get misplaced. Next, do not inappropriately use telephones or computer equipment at the volunteer site. If they are allowing you to use their phone or computer, only use it for the task that you were assigned. For example, do not use their computer to go on Facebook or their phone to call a friend. Also, while you are volunteering, do not use your own cell phone. Put your cell phone in a place that is safe or in your pocket. Turn your ringer off and only take your phone out if it is an emergency to avoid any distractions. Lastly, do not use insensitive or offensive language. Think about what you are going to say before you say it. If you think you are going to offend someone, don't say it. You don't want to upset anyone. Now that we went over both the do's and don'ts of volunteering, I will now ask you the 2 true and false questions to review what we have learned before we go to the next activity. You will have 10 seconds to come up with an answer. Just a reminder, if you need more time, you could always pause the video and press play when you are ready. Question 1. If I'm volunteering in a healthcare setting, it is okay to tell my friend personal information about a patient. Is this true or false? Take 10 seconds to think about it. The answer was false. As stated earlier, especially in a healthcare setting, it is against HIPAA regulations to talk about a patient. Question 2. If I do not know how to do something, I should always ask someone to ensure I do it properly. Is this true or false? Let's take another 10 seconds to think about it. This is true. If you do not know how to do something, you should always ask. They will be happy to help you. I hope you found this part of the session beneficial in helping you know what you should and shouldn't do as a volunteer. This activity should have helped you feel more confident in knowing what will be expected of you as a volunteer. Now let's move to the next activity. For this next activity, I will show you videos of conflict that you may face as a volunteer. We will watch the video and I will pause it before the individual in the video handles the conflict. While the video is paused, I will give you 2 choices, A or B. You will choose which one is the proper way to handle the situation. I will give you 10 seconds to decide if you think A or B is correct. Just a reminder, if you need more time to think about it, you could pause the video and press play when you have decided on an answer. Once the 10 seconds is up, I will play the rest of the video so you could see which was the correct answer. Let's get started with our first video. In this first video, the individual is volunteering in an office setting and they are asked to staple some papers by their supervisor. Hello, Louis. Today I need you to staple these papers together. Can you staple the red paper to the brown paper? Thank you. The volunteer accidentally broke the stapler. What do you think that they should do? Should they A, the volunteer should tell their supervisor that they accidentally broke it and that they are sorry? Or should they B, the volunteer should hide it to avoid possibly getting in trouble? You have 10 seconds to decide if you think A or B is correct. Let's play the rest of the video and see.
Ashley, I'm so sorry. I think I broke your stapler.
It's okay. Thank you for being honest and letting me know. If you chose A, then you got the question correct. If you accidentally break something at your volunteer site, it is okay. You should be honest and tell them it was an accident and that you're sorry. In this video, the volunteer was in an office, but this situation can occur at any volunteer site. Another example could be if you're volunteering at an animal shelter and you accidentally step on the bowl of the dog food and the bowl breaks. No matter what setting you are in, you should always be honest and tell someone about the broken item and apologize. In this next video, the two volunteers are volunteering at a summer camp. The one volunteer is trying to tell the other one about the gossip that they heard about other volunteers that they volunteer with.
Did you hear the rumor going around camp? Tommy kissed Dawn this weekend, but he's dating Sherry.
Now, what should this other volunteer do that he's telling the gossip to? Should they, A, the volunteer should share with them the gossip that they've also heard, or B, the volunteer should say, I'm not interested and you should not be talking about other people behind their back. I will give you 10 seconds to decide if you think A or B is the correct answer. Let's take a look at the video and see. I'm not interested in the gossip, and you shouldn't be talking about people behind their back. If you chose B, then you got this question correct. If a volunteer is spreading rumors about anyone, you should avoid getting involved. You worked hard to get your volunteer position and you don't want to lose it. In this video, this situation occurred at a summer camp, but this situation can occur at any setting. Now let's take a look at the next video. In this video, the volunteers are volunteering at a food bank.
This is my favorite soup. Just gonna take this home. Me? We have enough cans here, you can take some.
Now, what should this volunteer do since he's telling her to steal? Should she A, listen to the other volunteer and steal because no one will know and they have the canned soup that you really like? Or B, tell the other volunteer you will not steal and that they shouldn't steal either? I will give you 10 seconds to decide on an answer. Now let's take a look at the rest of the video and see.
I'm not going to steal, and you shouldn't steal either.
But it's my favorite soup.
You should not be stealing from the food bank. That is not good.
If you chose B, then you got this question correct. As stated earlier in the don'ts, you should not steal from the volunteer site. And if you see someone stealing, you should also report that to your supervisor. In this video, the stealing occurred at a food bank, but stealing can occur at any setting. Another example of stealing would be if you were volunteering at a library and you were helping a visitor check out a book. If the visitor tells you that they want to keep the book and they don't want you to check it out in the database because they don't want to return it, although you are not personally stealing, you are helping someone else steal, and you should let them know that they are not allowed to do that. Most volunteer sites require you to write down the amount of hours that you have volunteered throughout the week. They may require you to volunteer a certain amount of hours each week. In this video, the volunteers are volunteering at the Red Cross, where they must write down the amount of hours that they volunteered weekly.
Hey guys, I'm just getting ready to leave. Don't forget it's Friday. You have to write down your hours. These are staying until 6 tonight. Have a great weekend. All right, thank you. Have a good weekend.
Well, she left. And I'm putting that I'm staying until 6, but I'm leaving now. Keep your mouth shut.
So what should this other volunteer do? Should she A, not follow the other volunteer and only write the amount of hours that she completed? Or B, follow the other volunteer because you know the supervisor has left and she won't find out, and you'll get to go home early on a Friday? You have 10 seconds to decide if A or B is correct. Now let's watch the rest of the video and see.
Well, I'm going to write that I stay till 6, and I'm going to stay until 6 o'clock.
If you chose A, then you got this question correct. As I stated previously, many volunteer sites will require you to write down your hours to ensure that you completed the amount of hours that you were supposed to. It is important that you are honest and only write down the number of hours that you actually completed. In this next video, the volunteer is volunteering at a Boys and Girls Club. He's assigned to answer the phone, and he gets a complaint from one of the parents. Let's watch the video.
Hello, Boys and Girls Club.
Hi, I was wondering if I could speak to your supervisor. My child attends there, and I'm really not satisfied with the program.
So what should this volunteer do? Should he, A, the volunteer should get their supervisor to deal with the situation properly, or B, the volunteer should tell the individual that they are wrong and that the situation is not big enough for them to get the supervisor? You have 10 seconds to decide on an answer. Let's take a look at the rest of the video and see.
All right, hold on 1 second. Let me get my supervisor.
Thank you.
So if you chose A, then you got this question correct. If you do not know how to handle the situation or someone asks you to talk to your supervisor, you should get your supervisor. Make sure you are polite and tell the person that you are sorry for any inconvenience and that you will go get the supervisor for them. Another example of this would be if you are volunteering in a healthcare setting and one of the patients has a complaint about a bill. Billing is not part of your volunteer job, so you should get someone that is in charge of billing to handle the situation and apologize to the person for any inconvenience. We are done with the video portion of this session. I hope that these videos have helped you understand what you should and shouldn't do as a volunteer better, and also how to address and avoid conflict. Now let's move to application. Let's think about how we could use what we learned today. Let's take a look at these questions. The first question is, where else can you use what we learned today? The information about what you should and shouldn't do as a volunteer can also be applied to a job. Many of the same rules apply for workers and volunteers. Some of these can also be applied to school. For example, when you go to school, you should always be on time and contact your professor or teacher if you are going to be late or miss a class. And some of these can also be applied to everyday life in general, such as if you go to a store, you are expected not to steal or destroy any of their property. These are just some examples of how this information applies to your everyday life. Let's move to question 2. How does this activity relate to you being a volunteer? This activity was designed to help you prepare for your role as a volunteer. Knowing what is appropriate to do and not to do as a volunteer and how to deal with situations that you may encounter will help you be successful as a volunteer. Just a reminder, today is the last session of group. So before I wrap up the group, I want to quickly summarize what we covered today. So first, you should always be on time when volunteering. And you should follow the volunteer site's code of conduct. You should also complete your responsibilities willingly and to the best of your ability. You should also follow any dress code of the volunteer site. You should respect confidentiality, and you should not steal or damage the volunteer site's property. You should always ask questions if you are unsure of what you are supposed to do while volunteering. Do not use the site's phone or computers inappropriately, and also your own phone. Do not use offensive language. Following these guidelines will help you be successful as a volunteer. Before we finish, I want to recap what you have learned by being part of the Create Unity Help Your Community group. In the first session, Stephanie covered searching for volunteer settings and considering travel and distance of the location. She helped you locate where you were interested in volunteering. In the second session, Nicole covered the different forms of transportation that you could take to the volunteer site. She talked about using trains, buses, taxis, and even asking a family member or friend for a ride. She also went over using different apps such as Uber or Lyft for transportation. Nicole went over scheduling a ride in advance and the importance of knowing the train and bus schedule so you don't miss it. In the third session, Lady introduced you to volunteer applications. She defined what a volunteer application was. She went over the different parts of the application and the information you may find on the application. She also told you what you should and shouldn't write on a volunteer application. She then showed you an actual volunteer applications and went over the different sections of them with you. In the fourth session, Amber focused on getting you ready for your interview. She defined verbal and nonverbal communication and how these communication skills are used in an interview. She discussed what you should wear and that you should arrive early for the interview. Amber told you what you should and shouldn't do during an interview and went over some sample interview questions with you. Today, we discussed what you should and shouldn't do as a volunteer. You also saw videos of possible conflict situations and how to deal with them. In providing you with this information over the past 5 weeks, it was our goal to help you feel confident in your ability to independently volunteer in the setting of your choice. I want to thank you for watching today's session and for participating in the activities. I hope that you had fun. Congratulations on completing this 5-week group. You now have all the tools you need to start volunteering. On behalf of my co-leaders and myself, we would all like to thank you for participating in our group. We hope you have enjoyed participating in this group and we hope that the information provided helped guide you on your journey towards becoming a volunteer. Good luck volunteering. I'm sure you will all do great. Thank you.